Hey yo guys, what's up? Welcome back to Two Toe Tags Metal Reviews, and today we're giving you guys our final review of I Loved You at Your Darkest by Behemoth. So after listening to this album for 1 week entirely, what are your thoughts?
You know what, I like the album. Overall, I like the album, but I do feel like the album fell a little flat. I feel like there was a lot of potential there and had a lot of hopes. The bar was pretty high. We talked about this in our first impressions. Coming off of The Satanist, which is, like we said, a masterpiece album. That album is so phenomenal. That album won the Album of the Year at the Golden God Awards the year it came out because it's so fantastic. Those are big shoes to fill. I don't think it lived up to that at all, pretty much. I get so much emotion from The Satanist. I get so much just pleasure from listening to it. Just the structure of the songs, the riffs, the melodies, the rhythms, everything about that album is perfectly executed to me. This album, on the other hand, feels like the extra songs that they recorded during the Satanist era, but that weren't good enough for the Satanist album. They just feel like, it feels like this album is in the same vein as the Satanist, but not the same caliber. Maybe I'm being too hard on it because I'm comparing it too much to the Satanist, but there just really wasn't anything about this that was screaming out to me and or impressing me, or just kind of tickling my fancy, you know what I'm saying? I don't know, man, it's hard to really put my finger on what wasn't pleasing me about it. But there's honestly, there's one thing on this album, one thing on this entire album in 46 minutes of music where I was like, oh wow, that's pretty cool, I like that. And it's the most subtle, tiniest, most pointless almost little thing. And it's basically I'm pretty sure it's a quadruple shot on the ride cymbal in We Are the Next 1,000 Years. It happens periodically throughout the groove of the song. Very subtle, but when you hear it, I'm like, whoa, that's pretty cool. And what it did though, is it reminded me of one of my favorite Behemoth songs off The Satanist, Messe Noir, which is, I mean, if you listen to the outro of that song, it's one of the most perfectly made pieces of music that exists to this day. I mean, those are big words, but to me, the whole second half of that song, specifically the outro with the solo and stuff like that, is a masterpiece. That's what this song reminded me of, and because of that, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Everything else kind of fell flat. I would say that my top songs were the singles that came out, Bartzabel, God Equals Dog, and Wolves of Siberia. Those are the three songs I thought were the best, and I felt like when those songs came out as singles, I thought, okay, these are gonna be the softer songs, everything else is gonna be heavy around these. It was kind of the opposite. Those were actually the heaviest songs on the album. The rest of the songs around that were a lot more melodic, a lot softer, a lot more kind of toned down and just more kind of rock orientated rather than being, black metal, which I guess, I don't know.
I mean, I don't really feel like there's a huge problem with that though. Because with this album, I felt like they took a big experimental step with it. Even though, as you said, it's in the same vein as The Satanist, and I agree that if you listen to both of these albums back to back, you can get some similar sound, similar vibes, similar, musical ideas coming out of both albums. But I feel this one had a lot more acoustics, a lot more, simpler rhythms. A lot more things were spread out, and a lot more open sounds. Yeah. And I feel like that was kind of new for this band, and that was kind of interesting to me. Throughout the week, we talked to each other a little bit about what we were thinking of the album, and you kept constantly comparing it to The Satanist. Yeah. I'm saying, can I feel these shoes? I don't know if I'm feeling this album. I took it to myself to try as hard as I could not to pay any mind to The Satanist at all, whatsoever, because I'm thinking I should just think about this album on its own, as an album. Because if I keep comparing it to a masterpiece like The Satanist, there's a good chance it won't fill shoes that big. Yeah. When you have an album as good as The Satanist, how can you really follow up and make it even better, that's really, really difficult.
That's what you're hoping for, though.
It is what you're hoping for,
right?
I just feel that's so difficult, it wouldn't be fair to hold it up to that high of a standard.
Yeah, maybe not.
So, this album, I mean, one thing that really grew on me specifically was the song Sabbath Matter. I really like the chorus, I like how major it sounds, as opposed to all the minor stuff, all the semitones. It just sounds so pretty. The chorus and the solo is really, really pretty with all the acoustics going on. I mentioned this last week. I either mentioned it to you or I mentioned it in the video last week that I feel like the solos were kind of quiet. Like,
Yeah.
just specifically the mix. If they just turned the guitar up or turned everything else down, because I've tried to listen to this beautiful guitar solo, but it's like I can barely hear it.
Yeah.
And that was, you know, not only in our listening session did I feel that way, but also when I was listening to it on my own on different speakers, different audio equipment, I felt that way still. So I feel like that's kind of a fault. Not on my ears, but more on the album. But I don't know, maybe my ears are clogged with wax, I don't fucking know. But yeah, so that one specifically grew on me. Like, it would get stuck in my head.
Yeah.
The chorus for that song stuck in my head. A few things get stuck in my head, specifically, again, the chanting at the end of God Equals Dog, which is also there in the first song, Solve.
Yep.
That's just, I love it so much. It sounds so cool. The children chanting, it's just, I love the picture that painted.
Yeah.
I remember you asked me last week, you know, did you feel that the intro track did a good job at setting it up? And the more I listened to it throughout the week, the more I'd gain confidence in that song doing the job really well. Because I think of that song, it transfers really well into Wolves of Siberia, and then that concept is brought back again in the track after, God Equals Dog.
Yep.
So the more I think about it, wow, Solve is a great intro track. It doesn't.
It is a great intro track, I agree, but the more I listened to it throughout the week, the more I was skipping it. I'm not gonna lie, because it just it doesn't have any, even though it's a good, like, setup for the album, it doesn't really have any substance that it's really I want to listen to, right? It just doesn't. So I'm just like, oh yeah, this, skip it. You know, I already know what it's about. I already know what it brings. I already know what it offers and stuff like that. But one thing you mentioned, and I just want to kind of touch on this a little bit, is you said that this album was very experimental, which I feel like it is. Maybe not like super experimental, but
yeah,
it's got a lot of elements to it that are definitely kind of just out of the norm when it comes to this band. I just want to point out that I feel like the fans' reception to this band generally has been very good. I've seen a lot of positive remarks about this, and I'm probably going to be in the minority as one of the guys that kind of has a more negative opinion on it. But I feel like it's very strange. In the metal community, usually when a band does this, they get rejected by the fans. They're called sellouts or whatever, right? When they try to take a different route, especially if the band goes from super heavy to a much lighter tone. And I got some quotes here from Nihil, which kind of proved that was the direction they were going. He says, I really wanted to redefine ourselves with this record. So redefine, like that's a big word for a band, right?
especially one that's been around for so long.
Exactly. He says, I loved you at your darkest. It's a more dynamic record. It's extreme and radical on one hand, but it's also more rock oriented than other Behemoth records. So it tells me that they're going for a softer sound, going for a more rock oriented sound, probably to try to reach a bigger audience, which in many cases people would say that's selling out. Although our origin is black metal, Behemoth is something bigger. We know our legacy, but with this record we look to advance to higher ground. So again, he knows where he stands in the community, he knows where he stands in the business, in the music spectrum, but he wants to reach more. And how do bands do that? Well, they try to reach a bigger crowd by being more, I don't know, accessible. Exactly. So I don't get the fact that a lot of people are praising this album so much, because basically, from his own words, they sold out. They threw the heaviness away, they threw the darkness away, and they settled for something a lot more accessible to try to basically bring more people in. Now that's something like, I'm not the type of person that says, oh, this band sold out, whatever. I respect what bands do, but I don't have to like it, okay? This to me is not Behemoth. Like I said, it's in the same vein as the Satanists as far as the overall kind of presentation and sound, but the Satanists still had this badassery to it. You listen to the opening of Blow Your Trumpets, Gabriel, and you're like, yes, you're cranking it to 11, you're breaking that fucking knob off. You're just like, you're in it, because it's so captivating. It's like, and that's the whole album is like that. This one, it's like I can listen to it loud, I can listen to it quiet. It didn't make a difference either way. I can shuffle the album, I can skip songs. It just was there. There's nothing about it that I was like, well, this is really cool, that's really cool. It felt like just B-side tracks. Like, I don't know. But that's how I feel about it. So I don't know, let's get to ratings, I guess.
All right, well, that being said, I feel like the way you explained the selling out concept's a little bit harsh, because it's not like this isn't Behemoth at all. I still feel the Behemoth vibes from this. And, you know, I mentioned I didn't want to compare this to the Satanists, but today specifically, I said, you know what? I'll listen to these albums back to back and see how they differ. And this is a good album. This is a cool album. I enjoyed it. There are memorable moments for me. But after listening to the Satanist, it doesn't hit the marks that the Satanist does.
Yep.
The Satanist paints such a grand, such a mean, evil picture, and it feels incredible, especially when you're at the very end with "Oh Father, Oh Satan, Oh Son." It's just, you're sitting there just totally destroyed after everything else.
Takes you away.
This album did not take me away, but I still think it's really cool and had great moments, so this album gets a 7 from me because I still think it's solid, but the Satanist, it doesn't hit me where the Satanist does.
Would you give it a 7?
I give it a 7, yeah.
Not bad. I think a 7 is a little bit too generous for this, personally, for me. Just to touch on something you said a second ago where, like, you know, even though like they kind of sold out, but they still sound like Behemoth. Selling out doesn't mean you're gonna sound like not like yourself anymore.
Yeah.
It's just like you just soften up to the point where you're neglecting what your core fans want so you can reach other people, right? And I don't care if bands want to do that, they want to do that. But you know, when you listen to an album like Demigod, and then you listen to this, it sounds like two different bands, right? It's, you know, or if you listen even between Demigod and the Satanist, it sounds vastly different. Like they changed their style quite a bit for the Satanist, but they still wrote amazing music for the Satanist. So it's like, it's a little more forgivable for that, right? Like I said, they won the album of the year for that. Anyways, with that all said, I don't hate this album. I don't think it's bad per se. I just think that as musicians, you know, all three band members could have stepped up their game a little bit. The guitar solos were a little weak. The vocals weren't that strong. I think Inferno on the drums is probably the highlight of the album. His rolls, his fills, his style, it's all very presented there, but the hardness is not there. So I'm kind of like very tossed in the middle. I'm gonna give this a 5. I feel like that's the best score I can give it. I didn't hate it, I didn't love it. I'm kind of just right in the middle on this. Very average, very bland kind of album for me. So that's it, a 5 from me, a 7 from him. Unfortunately, this one's not gonna get the toe tags.
Not but, of us.
You know, whether we give it good scores or bad scores, we think you guys should definitely check out the albums and definitely leave your comments below and let us know what you think. Let us know what you think of our opinions. I'm probably gonna get shat on a little bit because people tend to disagree with me when I'm a little bit harsh on an album, but you got kind of a good cop, bad cop type of situation going on here with this review. But hey, that's why you get the benefit of having two different opinions on albums like this with this channel. So leave your comments below, like the video, and make sure you guys subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. We always got metal content coming for you guys. I'm Vile Self.
I'm TV Fish.
We'll see you guys on the next one. Later.